绿婷这边要不要看一下是不是有需要接受上线的功能？
好，我确定一下。
我刚刚有把一个 palette 的贴图放在这个通话里面。那如果因为我们有一些不是我们参与这次出访的，也可以从 palette 上面有一些大家可以看到哈，我们有一些关于要去参访的一些资料都放在上面了。谢谢朗组长也上来了，谢谢你。我们教育部有戴淑芬副署长，还有我们英卫科长也在线上，也跟组长说一下，是也谢谢组长的帮忙。
嗨，郎组长好。Okay, we have Shelly here. Okay, so I see. Hi, Shelly. Nice to meet you. Okay.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, so good morning, everyone in Taiwan, and good evening, our friends in Canada. And I think today we will have an opportunity, and we are looking forward to today's the information section about the Director Tom will share with the a very I think it's a quite big project about the paper that the Ottawa that have about the Big Ten. So I think Director Tom will share with us. And also, I think today is April 23rd, and just 1 month later, we will start heading to Ottawa. We are really eager for that. And I think before we started, let me introduce the members, the faculty here. So let me introduce the Deputy Director, Deputy Ministry of the MOE, Miss Dai. OK， 我介绍我们的国教署的戴淑芬副署长，今天特别也上线，谢谢。I think Tom, you met Miss Dai last November, and also we have the representative about the MOE is Miss Lin, and she will be the leader of this group to the Ottawa. 我们介绍我们的林英瑞林科长，好，给大家，他这次是代表我们教育部国教署来带领我们这个团队。Okay, this is the Taiwan's project. I think the others delegate just at the name row. And let me introduce the Ottawa represent Canada. I think everybody knows very about the Director Tom. So let me introduce Tom again. Director Tom, let me introduce again. And also let me introduce Shelly. I will big thanks to Shelly because she organized all the school bus for us during the noontime at the school transportation. So thank you, Shelly. And also we have the Lang组长, okay, Miss Lang in Ottawa represent our MOE in Ottawa. 介绍我们的那个在加拿大驻渥太华的我们的代表处的教育组的郎组长。好，我们介绍郎组长，谢谢。Okay, so I think Tom, I will back to you and you may start. Thank you.
Great, thank you. It's nice to see many of you again since my visit last November. And Shelley and I will both be co-presenting today. I'm the Director of Education, and Shelley is a superintendent. She's the co-lead for all of Canada with deep learning. And Shelley's a key player when we have visitors from other countries to organize the visits to our schools and to work with our principals. So in the next short time, what we're going to share with you is a little bit of background, things that you wouldn't see when you visit our district. So how provincial education is organized in Ottawa and Ontario, a little bit about our school board structure, and then we'll spend a little bit of time speaking about district leadership for NPDL and how we've scaled, and then as well a little bit about principal leadership practices that have worked in our board. And then we'll do a walkthrough of the 3-day visit that you'll have when you come to Ottawa. We'll have lots of time for questions. So feel free to write anything down and we'll take questions at the end. So you'll see a picture of Canada. We're a very large geographic country. We're not so large population, but we are spread out right across. You'll see the different provinces. Unlike Taiwan, we don't have a federal or national education ministry of education. So there is no jurisdiction for education federally. There's also no city jurisdiction. So there's nothing federally and there's nothing by the city. So everything is organized by each province. And the province that you'll be visiting is Ontario. And you'll see that in the map on the screen. And every province is different. But I would say in my biased view, the two leading provinces with education across Canada are Ontario and British Columbia. So they tend to be the provinces that are the most progressive, most innovative. Other provinces do quite well in different areas, but you'll be learning about the Ontario education system. So in Ontario, we have 72 school districts. Now, of those 72 school districts, 31 of them are fully funded, English-speaking public education. The one that you will be visiting is the Ottawa Catholic School Board. So we are one of 29 English-speaking Catholic school boards. And then there are also 8 French Catholic school boards across Ontario and 4 French public. So Ottawa is a little bit unique in that we have all 4 types in Ottawa. So when you come to Ottawa, there are 4 school boards, which means parents can choose to send their children to any of those 4 school boards. There's some differences, but that's the big picture of the system in Ontario and how we work things in Ottawa. All of them are completely funded by the provincial government. So each student receives a grant that goes to the school board, and it's the same whether they go to a Catholic school board, a French school board, English or public. So the dollars stay with the student, and that's how we're able to pay and organize our school system, is from our provincial government. The Ministry of Education, one of the things I will say that when I visited Taiwan, I was really impressed with the coordination between your cities, your schools, your Ministry of Education, and your universities. So having that coherence is really a good thing and better than what I would say that what we have in Ontario. So our Ministry of Education, their jobs are to set the curriculum. So they will tell us every year what we have to teach. And in Ontario, much of our curriculum has been very outdated. We've been waiting for new changes. So the government, for example, just told us that next year, every student going into grade 9, so their first year of high school, either in grade 9 or grade 10, must take one technology course. So that's something that's new that our ministry has decided. And now we as a school board will have to figure out how to make that work. As I mentioned, The funding comes from the province to the school boards. In our school board, our annual budget, we have 89 schools, 50,000 students. Our budget is about $565 million. That's Canadian dollars. And all of that comes straight from the government. The government, or the Ministry of Education, they decide the graduation requirements. So for example, in Ontario, every student that wants to graduate, they must complete 40 hours of community service. So on top of all of their courses that they have to complete, they have to do 40 hours between grades 9 and 12. They also have to complete 2 credits in e-learning. So over their 4 years, 2 of their credits that they take should be in e-learning format. That's fairly new in Ontario. I'm not going to go through all of the different requirements other than to say the government makes those decisions and the school boards figure out how to make it work. The Ministry of Education decide any resources, so textbooks or guidelines, but we then decide which ones to purchase. In Ontario, the Ministry of Education is responsible for preschool, so those are our early years, and then K to 12. So K is our first year of kindergarten. Those are 4-year-olds, and there's a 2-year kindergarten program. And then students stay in school until they finish grade 12. Our Minister of Education is an elected position. So the government is elected, and then they appoint, the Premier appoints a cabinet, and that's how we get the ministry. That's how we get a Minister of Education. And something that's very different than what I experienced when I visited some of your schools is to decide on which school you want to attend. It's not based on your marks. It's not based on normally a specific program. It's based on your neighborhood. So students in the same neighborhood would choose between the Catholic school or the public school or the French school. But normally it's not based on really high marks. So there are some specialty schools and programs, but most of our schools are based on the neighborhood or geography. The Ontario College of Teachers, they regulate who can become a teacher. So you'll see on the right-hand side of that slide, to become a teacher in Ontario, you must have completed a 3 or a 4-year degree, so a university degree. And then after you've finished your university degree, most will apply to go to 2-year teachers college program. So it takes 5 years to become a teacher. You would get 2 degrees using that format. The other program is some will go into a teachers college program called concurrent education, and they can do that right away after high school. And that's between a 4.5 or a 5-year program, and they would get their teachers college degree. They have to pay an annual fee to the College of Teachers every year to stay certified. And there's now a requirement that also to become certified as a teacher, you must complete a sexual abuse prevention program. So they do their 2-year program. They also have to complete this certificate. Some of the things that the College of Teachers are responsible for is they create the training program. There's a public register, so anyone in Ontario can go to the College of Teacher website, look up by name every teacher in Ontario, and it will tell you that teacher's qualifications, any degrees that they've earned, any additional courses they've taken, and if there's been any complaints against the teacher that are being investigated, that's also publicly available. Teachers, to have increases in their pay, have to take additional courses, and the College of Teachers organizes those different courses every year, and they also certify international teachers. Now, because we have a real shortage of teachers, not just in Ontario, but right across Canada, they're making it easier for internationally certified teachers to come to Ontario and to get certified. So it's a quicker process now for the College of Teachers. It still takes time, but they're really focusing on how can we get more teachers from other countries come to Canada because we have such a shortage of teachers. I know there's several principals that are on the call today and that will be visiting us in Ottawa. So I wanted to share with you how you become a principal in Ontario. So you would have to have your undergraduate degree, so your university degree. You have your teacher's degree as well. And then you must have 5 years experience as a teacher. Then you must be certified in, you take summer programs, and you must be certified in 3 divisions. So our divisions are primary, which is grades 1 to 3, junior, which is grades 4, 5, and 6, intermediate, grades 7, 8, 9, 10, and senior 11, 12. So 3 of those 4 areas you have to be certified in. And then you must also have either a master's degree in any subject or what Ontario calls honor specialist. So for example, if you're really interested in English and business, you could spend several summers getting an honor specialist in English and an honor specialist in business, and that's the equivalent of a master's degree. And then you must take 2 more courses, Part 1 principal qualification and Part 2 principal qualification. So it's not an easy certification to become qualified in Ontario, but we, although we've had some shortages, we do have lots of people now that are interested in becoming principals. The pay is very good, but there's a lot of responsibility. On the right-hand side, I've shared with you what happens in that Part 1 and Part 2 principal qualification course. So each of those courses is 125 hours. And the courses are divided into leadership and management, what your legal obligations are to be a principal, how to be a strategic leader, pedagogical leadership, theories of learning, and then a focus on relationships and partnerships. And again, I know you probably have lots of questions. We're happy to take those right at the end. And in a second, I'm going to turn it over, I believe, to Shelley, but I'll do this last slide. Something that I certainly saw in Taiwan that I think is a challenge for you with deep learning is there's such a focus on testing. So standardized testing is really important in Taiwan, both your international results, but also to decide which school the children get to attend. So parents are going to be very motivated for testing, and they want to make sure that deep learning is not taking away from how the students do with standardized tests. So I wanted to share that we also have some standardized testing in Ontario. The office is called EQAO, so it's a provincial organization, Education Quality and Accountability Office, and they administer all of the province-wide testing. So the first province-wide testing is in grade 3, and there's a test on reading, writing, and mathematics. But how the student does on that test does not indicate any particular pathway for them. It's just feedback for the schools to see how well each student is doing. The same thing happens in grade 6, reading, writing, and math. And again, it does not count for anything. It doesn't mean what school the student can go to, but the government does publish it. So parents are really interested in sending their children to schools that have high marks in grade 3 and grade 6 for reading, writing, and math. In high school, there's a grade 9 mathematics standardized test. And again, schools are compared against one another. But a student can do poorly in the grade 9 math test and still continue on. The one test that we call a high stakes test is the grade 10 Ontario Secondary School Literacy Test. So a reading and writing test. That's the OSSLT. A student must pass that test in order to graduate. So if you fail that test in grade 10, you do have another opportunity to take the test. So you would work with your school. And if you failed it again, there's a course that you could take. And as long as you pass the course, you can still be on a pathway to graduate. And the last area that EQAO is responsible for is PISA and any international test. And they select which schools, and each school board participate in PISA. So I'm hoping or anticipating that you would see similarities between some of the testing that you do and that we do in Ontario. So now I'll turn over to Shelley to talk a little bit more specifically about our school board.
Hello, everyone, and I think it's Lin Ho. How do you say it? Did I get that right? To say hello? Okay, I tried. I should have used AI to get it right, but I tried it on my own. So we're very excited to have you at Ottawa Catholic School Board, and Tom just gave you an overview of more of the provincial outlook of what it looks like for education in Ontario, and I'm just going to do a few slides on what it looks more specifically like at the Ottawa Catholic School Board. So when you arrive, what it looks like in context to the Ontario Ministry of Education. So at Ottawa Catholic, we are very excited that we have 87 schools in total, soon to be 89. We are opening 2 brand new elementary schools starting in September 2024. We have over 5,000 employees, which would include teachers, obviously, but principals, support staff, custodial staff, everyone that would support students in general, planning and facilities, and education. We have 49,000 students on this slide, but I know that with our new kindergarten enrollment by September 2024, we're actually almost up to 51,000 by then in a few months. And we offer French immersion in all of our schools. So that means that we have in kindergarten, they will have 50% of their instruction in French and 50% of their instruction in English. Then in grades 1 to 3, they have 25% of their instruction in French and 75% in English. And then from grades 4 to 12, they have an option. Parents choose between 50% in French and English, or they can choose with core, which is more of just more 40 to 50 minutes a day in French. So, and I think most people on the call here today are high school background. So we have 16 high schools, one of which is a virtual school now. I'm not sure in Taiwan if you're offering a virtual school option, but we have a virtual school now. So 15 of those are face-to-face community schools and then 1 virtual. And the range of population of students in all of those schools is between 700 to 2,300 students. So I guess, thank you, Tom. So Tom already talked about our school board governance model. So we have elected officials who are what we consider our trustees, or who are our trustees. So they run the governance piece of our school board. The day-to-day operation decisions, however, are left to our staff, so folks like Tom or myself. But those that are in the governance model, the trustees, they're elected every 4 years, and they are responsible for budget decisions. However, they're very good at taking the recommendations from the staff in terms of making those decisions for the budget. They set policy, and again, they are good to take recommendations that we recommend to them. So when I say staff, those are people who have studied education versus people who have been elected by the public. So that is the big difference, really. We have school councils in every school that is mandated by the Ministry of Education as well. And the trustees do receive an honorarium, no living wage or anything like that. It is considered somewhat of a volunteer position. However, they do get honored in a term of a wage for their time. And they respond to parent inquiries. And typically what they do with those parent inquiries is they send them to, let's say myself, a superintendent, who we will support them in responding to the parent inquiries. And they have 1 employee of the entire 5,000 employees, and that employee right now is Tom D'Amico, our director, who you just heard from. So the rest of us are typically employed by the actual Ottawa Catholic School Board. So in terms of our school structure, in elementary, we have kindergarten to grade 8. When you come visit our school, that in the province of Ontario, elementary is considered kindergarten to grade 8. Our school structure at Ottawa Catholic School Board is actually K to 6 in almost all of our schools, and then 7 to 12, which they're in the same, 7 to 12 are in the same building. So when you go visit the 3 high schools that you will visit, you will see 7 to 12 in that building. And then the 1 elementary school you'll visit, you'll see K to 6, just to make the distinction. but every school board in Ontario can make those distinctions in how they decide to do a K to 6, K to 7, K to 8. We see different versions of that across the province. But the ages are ages 4 to 13, and then secondary is 14 to 17. And yeah, oh, and yes, and I already explained that part, so that's great. So in terms of the structure of the staff, as I was saying, so there's the governance model with the trustees, where they deal with all the public. This is the executive team, essentially, that we have here listed. So there's the Director of Education, which is Tom, as you just heard from and have met, most of you. And then we have the Associate Director of Business Affairs and Associate Director of Education. So one Associate Director deals with more things on the pedagogical side of education, while the other one deals with more items such as business and planning facilities and finances. And then there's 7 academic superintendents across the system, which I'm one of them. And then there's 2 business superintendents, one of which is specifically working with planning and facilities, so the buildings, I always like to say, the actual structure, and then which the other person is dealing with equity, inclusion, parents, and Indigenous sort of portfolios. So very important role. And the academic superintendents, the 7 of us, myself included, we are also responsible for 2 family of schools. Most of us are 2, one has 3 and one has 1. So, but we deal with, when you come visit the schools, we'll explain that you're visiting, for example, the St. Patrick Family School, for example. And so if there's a parent concern or staff concern in those particular family of schools, they come directly to the superintendent of that family of schools. And then our high school structure is, as I mentioned, we already mentioned 7 to 12, but how is that staffed? So each high school has 1 principal only, doesn't, regardless of the size. So they could be a school of 700 or 1900 or 2400. They have 1 principal, but every school has had 3 vice principals over time. We're changing that more recently, but right now it's 3 vice principals per school. And then if there's a school above 1900, they receive 4 vice principals. And then at the elementary model, most of our elementary schools, because they're under 425 students, do not have a vice principal. However, if they do, they receive 1 0.5 vice principal. And then, as you can see here in the chart, that's basically the formula of how they would receive more support, on the administration side of things. So 650 students, they get 1 vice principal. And so on. And then if just recently last year, because we don't have many elementary schools over 900, but now when we do get 1, we will give them 2 vice principals for the volume and the support, because the school is so large at the elementary level. And I'm very happy about that, because most of my background is elementary. So I've been a strong advocate of getting more admin support for our elementary schools. So always grateful for those numbers here. And in terms of, and I think if I understand correctly, in Taiwan, you use the word secretary, that kind of aligns more closely with vice principal or admin. In our schools, we have what we call office administrators. So, and in short, we say OA. That's why you'll see the word, the acronym OA here. So in our high schools, which is where most of you will visit, if you are a school between 0 to basically 1,200 students, you receive 4 full-time office administrators for the year. And then depending, because we have 2 months off in the summer, some of them work full-time right through the summer as well, and while others will work 11 months. And then if, as you see here, 1,200 to 1,399 or 1,400, they receive 5 office administrators. And then 14 plus, they receive 6 office administrators. In elementary schools, still working on that one from an elementary perspective, but we get 1 full-time OA. And more recently, actually, if you're over, I think 700, you do get a second OA. And then you get additional hours depending on the time of year, because some weeks are busier than others. Like kindergarten registration, you might need more support, so they get to pull in an extra OA to help at that time in the office. So the office administrators in our education system are supporting more of, speaking with the parents on the phone. A child needs to go home sick. all the registration paperwork, that sort of thing. They do not deal with discipline. They do not deal with making decisions for the education system. They deal solely, they're that front person at the office when a parent walks in, and they help, that friendly face that helps support the parents when they walk in the school. So that's our school structure in terms of administrators and secretaries.
Thanks, Shelley. And I think that'll be a big difference from what I saw in Taiwan when you look at the support structure, or how the team that our principals work with in our high schools compared to the schools I visited in Taiwan, where it did not seem like it was as big of a team. Hopefully you're all familiar with this image, but I want to just walk through it again, because this really is the focus of your visit to Ottawa Catholic. So for all of our staff, throughout each year, they'll at some point come across this image. And we say that our work as educators is to start with those 4 elements, to look at our pedagogical practices, to establish learning partnerships, to create the best possible learning environment, and to leverage digital. And when they take those 4 elements, what we really want them to do is design and implement culturally relevant deep learning opportunities. So that's where the equity component comes in for each of those 4 areas. And in Canada, and at least Ontario, we don't consider Indigenous the same as equity. So they are very different groups. But our Indigenous pedagogical piece, a lot of it is land-based practices or outdoor education. And that's where that would come in. And we would have learning partnerships with elders, with knowledge keepers. And our learning environment might move from indoors to outdoors. In all of those, we want our educators to look at how are they helping our students with the global competencies. So we want every year our students to get better at creativity, citizenship, collaboration, communication, character, critical thinking. Next year, our district will focus a lot on AI, artificial intelligence. So this year is a year of learning for us with AI. Next year, we will fully implement AI throughout our system. And because of that, Shelley will be the lead. We will be looking at all of our schools, making sure in their student achievement plans, they focus on critical thinking in addition to any of the other global competencies. Because if you're using AI, you need to be thinking critically about the output and whether or not it is biased and is it accurate. And the last piece from this diagram is the student outcomes. Now, in some districts, this is where they say the portrait of a graduate. What do we want our students to be like when they leave our school system? We've changed that over the years to a portrait of a learner, because we want each student every single year to be the best possible student they can be. So if you're a 15-year-old in grade 9, we want you to do the best you can in a deep learning environment, develop your global competencies, so that by the end of grade 9, you've seen improvements in those areas compared to the start of grade 9. So we're not preparing everyone to graduate, we're preparing them to be better year after year. So that's a main diagram that we use for deep learning in our district. Now, you're familiar with this book. I know yours is translated into Chinese, but the book on the right, the Dive into Deep Learning, Tools for Engagement. Every year when we have new teachers, each of our new teachers receives a copy of this book, and they will get in-service or professional learning on how to use the different tools within the book. We don't force anyone to use the rubrics. It's completely optional. But you'll see that the language is consistent throughout our board and everything that we do, where we talk about the 6 C's or the global competencies. Our government, I mentioned I was envious of your relationship with your ministry. Our Ministry of Education does not formally promote deep learning. They do not formally have any of the global competencies on the report card. So that's always been a challenge for us, in that our staff have to do learning skills, but there's not a perfect match to the 6 C's or the global competencies. I don't know how many of you had a chance to look at the big tent, but this was a research project by Jal Mehta, who's a researcher from Harvard, and a colleague, Sarah Fine, who's now at a different university. So they came and they visited schools in Ottawa, similar to what you'll be doing. I would say they spent more time in our elementary schools. And what they discovered, or their white paper findings, were there were 3 key areas that have helped us with our success. And that's the clarity, it's our strategy, and our persistence. So they mentioned that it's aspirational for us that every classroom and every school becomes a space where students from a range of backgrounds can look at big ideas from multiple perspectives, and they can practice the global competencies and become change makers in the world that the world needs today. So we were really pleased with that finding and that observation. They then, in this paper, this white paper, felt that there were 5 factors that led to the success right across our district with deep learning. So the first was, we are committed to deep learning. So we have been continuing with the language of deep learning for 10 years. So we haven't abandoned it, we've just modified it from year to year. We've put in place structures and systems. So Shelley mentioned the families of schools. We also have meetings of principals once a month where they come together. The second Tuesday of every month is a staff meeting, and we provide resources to each of our principals related to deep learning for a portion of that staff meeting. So everyone right across the district is getting some in-service. And we weave existing practices with novel practices. So when our government brought in, which was good, a focus more on Indigenous education and land-based learning, for us, we look at that and we say, where does that fit in within the deep learning model? With AI, where does it fit in within deep learning? So the importance of that is teachers are not, and educators and administrators are not thinking, okay, this is going to go away and there'll be some new focus. It's the new focus fits within our existing models of deep learning. And the last key factor for success was the personal and relational approach. So we don't ask, if Roger was a principal in our schools, I wouldn't say to Roger, you have to do it exactly this way. He would have the leadership and the flexibility to adjust deep learning to the conditions in his school. If your school has a brilliant outdoor complex and wonderful nature and lots of space, you're going to be able to do something that's very different than someone who has a very small area to work with and largely concrete within their building. So everyone will do deep learning, but they do it in their own way, knowing the culture of their school, because each culture is different. So that was really important, and we were appreciative that they picked that up. To have system-wide implementation, I've covered some of these already, it needs to be focused, it needs to be sustained messaging, and it has to have the board's direction using deep learning as the teaching and learning framework. So our school year runs from September to the end of June. Every August, there'll be a meeting with myself and the superintendents and all of the principals and central leaders. And there'll always be a message about deep learning. We'll remind our staff why we're using deep learning as our strategy and how it's making a difference in the lives of our students. We have a series of videos that we create, very short videos, so usually between 2 and 3 minutes maximum. And we talk about examples of learning partnerships or examples of pedagogical practices. So they will see themselves in those videos and they'll see the language being reinforced. And then coherence. Coherence is so important. We didn't come up with lots of extra money to implement deep learning. So there wasn't any extra money from the government, no windfall of funds. It was prioritizing and saying, we're going to redirect resources from one area into another. So recently, our focus has been on outdoor learning and how we can improve the learning environment to take place outside of the classroom. So we committed $7.5 million across our district for schools to create projects that look at their learning environment, but not in the classroom, outdoors. So that's funds that we had in reserves that will go towards that initiative. And as I mentioned, deep learning encompasses any new priorities like equity and Indigenous education. And I'll turn it to Shelley, I believe, at this point. No, is it still me, Shelley? I can do this one.
That's okay. I can do it though.
So principal leadership practices. So that was the district leadership practice that I was sharing. With principal leadership practice, things that we look for, and I'm hoping you'll look for this as well during your visit, and you can speak to the principals about this. We want them to use the language. So we want to hear them talking about the 4 elements and talking about either global competencies or 6 C's. And if they're not, it's not a discipline matter, it's a support or coaching model. So the superintendents will remind them that it was a great opportunity for them to talk to their staff about the learning environment or the learning partnership. Our principals take part in the learning alongside their staff. So they will come to learning sessions that we have to continue with their skills in deep learning. We ask them to incorporate the goals in their school improvement plan, which we now call student achievement plans, linked to the global competencies. We ask them to celebrate and connect staff examples to deep learning, to also use the language with parents and during their parent presentations. So those are all areas that we can continue to improve upon. And then at the district, we use it in all of our presentations. We recognize staff with certificates, with digital badges when they're getting extra training or doing something special with deep learning. All of our added positions and responsibilities. So when we hire vice principals or central positions, we will ask them to share a portfolio or through their interview questions about how they would lead deep learning in their particular area, give examples of what they've been doing. And our senior staff, so our superintendents, they'll use the language of deep learning during each of their school visits. And that's really important. Now, Michael Fullen, who you will hear from when you come to Ottawa, he talks about using the group to change the group. And that's such an important message because I know your high schools are very large. So if you've got between 2,000 and 3,000 students and you have 150 educators, you can't go and teach deep learning one class by one class. It's not possible. It would take you your whole career to get to every class, every teacher. But what you can do is identify real keen leaders and teachers in your school and get them to work with another group of teachers. Use them to move their colleagues with their practice. And they're going to help create the conditions. So that instructional leadership piece really is coming from teachers to teachers. And your job is to set the conditions as principals to help them do that, to highlight examples where it's happening, to reward those that are doing it, and then to get others interested in following that. Now, just before Shelley speaks about your agenda when you visit, I do want to say you'll also see in the big tent that we still have work to do. So we know that, and we will learn from your visit, we learn from others. We know that our elementary has progressed much quicker and much more system scale with deep learning than our high schools. So within our high schools, we still have, you'll see some classes that are very traditional. Many of them have kids sitting in desks because we have not been able to afford changing all the furniture in high school like we have in elementary. But we also have many secondary high school teachers that are teaching through a deep learning lens. But you're not going to see deep learning in every single classroom, and that's okay. And it's good for you to say to the principal, you know, I didn't see deep learning in this classroom. How will you now work with that teacher to try and get them towards the goal of deep learning? So you're not visiting, you know, a show and tell. You're visiting real schools. You'll have a chance to ask any teacher, any student, any principal, any question you'd like. And we will be there alongside you to learn. And Shelley will now walk you through what the 3 days will look like.
Thanks, Tom. Yes, we're really excited to have you join us for these 3 days. As I said, I tried to look up how to say yellow school bus in Taiwanese, but it wasn't coming through for me properly. So for me, it's, from what I understand, though, it might be an exciting part of the visit, beginning to go on the yellow school bus. But and Tom, you thanked me for that. It was actually Vicky, my exec assistant, who organized all that. So we're excited to bring you around in those 3 days, in these 3 days, upcoming 3 days on the bus. So yes, you're going to start your visit off at the school board office. So where Tom and my office exists in that building, and where you'll have a virtual presentation from Michael Fullen. One of our most successful deep learning examples, I would say, would be what we call our social entrepreneurship program, where that means it's a educators, high school and elementary, they partner with a community business person, where they volunteer their time to come into the classroom, and together they create a business, and then they sell whatever product they choose to sell. But the money that they raise does not go towards themselves. It goes towards a social or a charity, something out back. They give it back out to the community, and this has become very popular in our school board. And so you'll see that format and how we created that. So that's going to be one of the first presentations you'll see, and one of the strongest examples of deep learning, I feel, that you'll see throughout the 3 days. Then you're actually really exciting piece is how, thanks to Tom's leadership, is over the years, we have now through, and you'll get a whole presentation on this, but where our schools are designed to maximize deep learning. So where there's spaces that are literally built to maximize flexible learning spaces, and open classrooms are kind of open door policy, where there's a wall that opens up and all that sort of thing. So you're going to get to see a brand new school that just opened up in September 2023, and it was designed with deep learning in mind. And you're not in this presentation that we're looking at here. It's going to be the architect or the project leader that is going to give that presentation. It's not going to be a teacher or principal. It's going to be the people who design the school and who can actually speak deep learning language. And then from there, we're going to go visit that brand new school. So we're going to take the yellow school bus and we're going to go about 25 minutes away, and we're going to go to that school, which is now called St. Bernadette, and happens to be we talked about family schools, happens to be one of my schools. And the principal there is lovely, and you'll meet the principal and vice principal, and they have arranged you to visit. This is your only elementary school visit, different classrooms where you'll see different elements of deep learning. So that's going to be day number 1. And then at night, we can give you some recommendations to restaurants if you'd like. I love good restaurants, so I don't mind sending you some names, but that's going to be up to you to go do that. Or you might just go straight to sleep. I don't know when you exactly arrive in Ottawa, but so that's day 1. And then day 2 here. So this is going to be you're going to take your own Uber or taxi to arrive at Immaculata High School, which is not far. It's right downtown. And we'll provide you breakfast at the school. And in that school, it's in the city. It's like in this downtown Ottawa. It's a huge building, I would say, for us, maybe not for you. I haven't visited your Taiwan high schools, but you will get to visit again there. The principal, teachers, vice principals, and again, throughout the visit, you will get to see elements of deep learning. And you'll have lunch at that school. And then does somebody have we'll do questions right at the end, I guess. And then from there, we'll take another yellow school bus, and we will go visit St. Francis of Xavier High School. It's one of our very large high schools, about 2,300 students. And again, it's going to be the same idea. So at each of the high schools, you're going to visit classrooms, and you're going to have an opportunity to speak to the principal, vice principal, and staff about how they have moved deep learning forward in their buildings. Or you can just ask any question, really, that is piqued your curiosity when it comes to education in Canada. And then it's
yes. W. Shelley. 静哲老师，您的麦克风可能要先关一下，谢谢。
Yes, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
No problem. And then the last day, on the 29th of May, you will visit Notre Dame High School. Has a lot of exciting things going on. So ironically, you're going to go visit one of our largest high schools on Tuesday afternoon to our actual very smallest high school. This high school is actually smaller than a couple of our elementary schools. We only have about 700 students in this high school. And it's one of our high schools that it's very diverse, meets the needs of a very diverse population. And so it'll be a very different experience, but also very rich experience. Lots of very amazing things happening at Notre Dame High School. And so you'll have breakfast there. So you'll take an Uber again. And then you'll visit, again, same idea, some classrooms, You'll be able to an opportunity to talk to the principal, vice principals, and educators about deep learning. And then we're going to take the yellow bus and go back to the board office right where you started on day one. And we'll have some lunch there for you. And then in the afternoon, we've arranged, based on our last meeting with you, which I hope everyone's doing okay. I know our last meeting, we met with you right after not even an hour after that massive earthquake. I remember that. And so, but in that meeting, you determined that these 4 topics would be what would be of interest to you. So we are going to have a presentation that's repeated twice on artificial intelligence and deep learning. Then we're going to repeat twice standardized testing and deep learning, social emotional learning and deep learning, and we have a vice principal network to try and move deep learning forward across our high schools, which has been more challenging than the elementary, as Tom has mentioned. So we're going to have 4 presentations offered twice. So you will have an opportunity to select. You won't be able to see all of them, but you'll be able to select kind of like a mini conference, I guess I'll call it, and you'll be able to select which workshops you want to go to. So all those presenters have been arranged and are ready to go, and they're excited to meet you. And yeah, so that's basically the 3 days of the visit, and then that's it. Then at the end of that, you'll have your 3 days with Ottawa Catholic, and hopefully leaving feeling inspired, and go back and have an opportunity to share with your own colleagues back in Taiwan. So that's it for us, I think, at this point. Tom, unless you have something to add.
No, that's what we wanted to give you some background. With the actual deep learning is what you're going to see that will be the focus of the visit, but we wanted you to have a little bit of an understanding of the education system in Ontario and Ottawa before your visit. And Shelley and I are available right now to answer any questions that might have come up or that you might be wondering about for the visit.
So thank you, Tom and Shelley. And I think it's really a wonderful presentation. There are 3 parts. First is about the organization and the background about the education structure of the Canada, and especially focus on the Ontario. And I think most of us will have some question about how to be the teacher and even how to be the principal in there, and compared with in Taiwan. And the second part is about the Big Ten. I think it's really inspiring. And the last part is about the schedule, your carefully arrangement for us. And I think we were really eager for the tour with the one elementary school and 3 high school. And so I think we still have 8 minutes round to have some question QA. So we have Teacher Grace here can help him for translate into the Chinese question into English to let you understand. So Teacher Grace, please help us. And 我们现在开始就是有一些 QA， 那大家如果可以直接用英文问问题也都可以啊，或者是说您用中文的话，我们有许晋哲许老师可以来协助做一些翻译。那我们现在就把握一下时间，看看大家有没有什么问题。副座有没有要先给我们讲几句话？我们可以请老师做一些翻译。
好，谢谢做这么清楚的那个说明哈。那我觉得虽然没有办法随同前往，但是看起来这个学习之旅，我想我们的师长一定可以有很丰富的那个收获。先帮我翻到这边。
Okay, Teacher Grace.
Yeah. I think our deputy. Okay.
We have.
是吗？还是静着？Okay. I think our deputy minister of education, she regret that she couldn't come with us alone through the trip, and she believed that we would have quite a lot of learning from the OCSB and from the school and teachers, and would be very rewarding. Yeah.
我其实是比较期待我们的师长到就是那个就是加拿大的时候可以看几个点呐哈。那我也希望说像我们这边就是局长这边也帮我们就是做一些的就是可以让我们了解更多。第一个部分的话就是 我好像看到就是学校那边对于那个教师社群的那个运用哈，看起来好像哈我不太晓得有没有误解，但是就对教师社群的运用感觉好像还蛮成熟的哈。另外好像有一个议题是提到那个什么就是社会的那个公益，它是就是会让孩子学习去从事那个公益的活动是吗？好，这是第二个。然后第三个部分的话是在那个 AI 辅助教学的部分，我也想说，我们师长可以去的时候再多了解一点。嘿，我再讲一次，就是说我看起来就是我刚听啊，哈，当然我的英文没有很好，但是这第一个就是他们在教师社群的那个运用哈，是不是有一些的经验可以分享？第二个部分，好像是是不是学生在处理那个社会公益那个部分，也是他们学习的重要一环？那对这个部分，我们好像在国内是不是会比较少？我不太清楚，或者是。然后第三个就是那个 AI 数位学习，还是
Yeah, I think Deputy raised the 3 issues she thinks very important for us to learn more from you. And the first thing is about how, as Michael Fullen said, that use group to lead group or use group to help or collaborate with group. So not only for the teacher, maybe also for the school, how to use such a strategy or what kind of very concrete the practices to kind of make the teacher buy in and collaborate with one another. The second part is about social entrepreneurship. How can what kind of programs or project or design that help the student get into the real world and using this kind of skill to make something different or change the world, the real world. And the third thing is about AI, is that because you talk about the Ontario, the symposium, not really fixing the old CSB, but how can you encompass, and particularly for the AI, you would kind of integrate into every school next year, and how can you prepare a school and then prepare a teacher to do it? Yeah, that's the 3 main main topic that Deputy would say that we could learn more from you.
Yes, so from those 3, 2 of them you're going to receive presentations when you're in Ottawa. So the social entrepreneurship program, we have unfortunately it's all in English, but we have a website filled with resources. We will have the leaders who will present to you some examples of how we use social entrepreneurship, how we partner. One of our learning partnership is with people in the business community that will come in and work with the teacher. So they will walk you through some really excellent examples of social entrepreneurship. The AI in education, our official launch is next September. So as a district, this year we're spending the time learning and figuring out what we want to do with AI. We're piloting different projects. We've just released our guiding principles that are really important, that will tell us, how do we make sure that it's humane and the ethical use of AI and how we protect student data. So we will also share that with you when you visit. So you'll have a chance to see where we're at with AI. The only one that we don't have anything specifically planned for your visit is how we use the group to move the group. But that's a type of question that would be great for you to ask different principals. To say to them, we saw a teacher who did a great example of deep learning and has, doing 2 courses together, and it might be what we call a specialist high skills major program. How do you use that teacher to spread to other teachers? So that would be one. Shelley, do you want to speak a little bit about our certification program and how we use that to spread between teachers? Because we don't present that during their visit.
Yes, sure. So we established a few years back now a certification program where a teacher can become deep learning certified. And so what that means is that on their own time, they come to the board office and they learn. They have a series of learning workshops where they become more educated on what deep learning means on a deeper level. And then they go back and apply that in their classrooms. And it's not always educators. We've had like the mental health lead take the deep learning certification, and they go back and apply what they're learning in their practice. And then they do, at the end, the expectation is that they present some sort of initiative where they've applied their learning in their practice. And then they receive a certification saying that they're deep learning certified. And some of them, we have a little badge, or they include that at the bottom of their email. Actually just today, we received, the superintendents received a plaque where they can go, or like a certification that's framed, where we'll go physically present their certification to the staff, in front of their staff at their schools, and congratulate them and celebrate that they have become deep learning certified. So it's kind of a step above. And then when they are deep learning certified, they become a leader in their own schools for other teachers in their schools to go to for questions around deep learning. So yeah, so that's the process in terms of our deep learning certification.
So thank you. Is there anyone has other questions? Okay, so I think today we have a very 温金校长是不是 ？OK
是上好 OK Hello Tom and Shelley. I'm Principal Chen Wenjing of Taipei Municipal Lishan High School, and Tom visited our school last November. Yeah, thank you for coming, and thank you for your sharing. And I want to ask you, is there an important connection between deep learning and standardized test preparation, or how to strike a balance between these two? Because parents, students, and teachers in Taiwan care about the graduator. And you mentioned that we should make students to be a portrait of learner, not a graduator. So how to you strike a balance between deep learning and EQAO? Thank you.
Tom,
Yeah, go ahead, Shelley.
Well, I'm not sure how exactly it works in Taiwan, but for Ontario, the standardized tests are supposed to be connected to our curriculum. So even though it says we mentioned grade 3, grade 6, grade 9, it's technically primary. So the standardized test could take into account grades 1, 2, and 3, and then secondly, grades 4, 5, and 6, and then 7, 8, and 9. So it's not necessarily directly related to the grade, it's to that division. And so because it's directly linked to the curriculum, our deep learning process, we try and make those connections in terms of how we're making the real life examples through that curriculum. So the balance is, we are not necessarily teaching to the test, we're teaching to the curriculum, which therefore, and we're using better strategies through deep learning to make it more realistic and make the learning actually last versus just teaching it for the test. So I'm not sure if that was clear, especially in a second language, but that's in general how we try and make the connections. However, what we do specifically teach about in terms of the standardized tests is, how do you answer a multiple choice question? What's the difference between, let's say, a thinking question and an application question? Teaching the kids specifically about how to respond to those types of questions are really important. But in terms of preparing them for the exam or the tests, going through using our curriculum that aligns to deep learning makes the learning last and makes it more rich for the students. So there's kind of two different pieces there. It's teaching to how to answer those kinds of questions versus teaching the curriculum. But we'll give some examples. We have a presentation on that as well planned for you on the last day, on the third day. So Tom, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think when we look at the definition of deep learning, and you mentioned it, Shelley, it's learning that sticks. So it's not just memorizing for that standardized test or that unit test. it's being so engaged in the learning process that you're going to always remember the learning that took place. So we do believe that if our teachers are teaching the major expectations of the curriculum using deep learning, the students are going to remember that when it comes to the standardized test, but they'll remember it beyond that as well. So we just see it as good learning. And the other piece I would add is, with pedagogical practices as one of the elements, it doesn't say you can't use direct instruction as a pedagogical practice. So that would be a lesson learned from our early years of deep learning, that some of our teachers thought we were saying you can never do direct instruction. Well, there's a time and place for direct instruction, especially when there's initial skills being taught. We just didn't want all direct instruction. So we wanted to move to more experiential learning and hands-on learning, but there can still be a variety of pedagogical practices. So your standardized test would be one type of assessment, but we don't want the teachers only doing testing throughout the year. That's one type of testing. We want them in conversations, we want them in observations. So it's not easy to answer your question. We still have parents that would rather we sent home 100 worksheets for math because that's the way they learned. And that's going to be a challenge for principals, but it has worked for us. We've been able to overcome the challenges of parents that just want worksheets to say it's going to be a balance.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you. I have a question. So my school is a K-12 school. So right now, I would take communication, for example. If we want our student, 12 graders to be effective communicators, and how to create a continuing for students from maybe grade 1 to grade 12. So do you have any learning progression separately for maybe elementary and middle school or secondary school? Yes. How to make sure students.
Yeah, so the progressions from the toolkit in the book are one set, but we found those very difficult to use. So we didn't find that their language was student friendly. So our staff did rewrite many of the progressions, but I would say the far majority of our teachers don't use the formal progressions. What happens at each school level during their school improvement planning process, they will identify, it could be by panel for an elementary grade, or it could be by subject area, that they're going to focus on one or more of the competencies. And then each of the teachers will be teaching those competencies. So if I'm a calculus teacher, and my school is focusing on collaboration, or my math department is focusing on collaboration, I need to intentionally teach collaboration with my students. So it's not a matter of just teaching the concepts of calculus. It's, I want to see my students improve as collaborators. So I may use a rubric that I've designed. I mean, now with AI, I can have AI design a rubric for me, but I could also use one of the progressions from the toolkit. Pedagogical practices, vertical learning surfaces is something that we are using in our math classes. So we want to see the students working standing up at, whether it's a whiteboard or a blackboard or a digital board. We don't want them always sitting at their table where no one can see their work. And then we want the teacher explaining to the students that when you're standing up doing your calculus, we want you to share with your colleagues in your class what you're doing and why. And if you don't understand it, go and speak to one of them. So that teacher is intentionally modeling and teaching collaboration while they're teaching the calculus skills. If the principal walks through the class, they're going to see that, they're going to validate the teacher, and then they're going to use that as an example at a staff meeting to share a good practice that they saw. Versus a traditional class and a traditional calculus teacher who is lecturing from the front, the students are all working individually at their desk. There's no collaboration, there's no sharing, so they're not developing those skill sets. So hopefully that answers your question. It will vary by educator and by school.
Thank you.
Okay, so everybody, do you have any other questions? Okay, so before we end up this today's section, I think later at the last we will have a photo here. So can everybody just turn on your video? 麻烦每一位。And before we take the photo, I have to very quickly about the May 29th, the 4 topics we need to choose 2. So when will we will let you know that which two topics we would like to hear, Tom?
Shelley, we can do it there. They don't need to tell us in advance, right? We can just, you can decide. We will have the 4 rooms for the 4 presentations, and you can travel to any of the 4
everybody
rooms.
can choose 2. Okay.
Everyone will choose, and then everyone will rotate to, so you can go to any of them. We don't need to know in advance.
Okay, that's great. And
what I did do though is tell the presenters that somebody in the group might share 5 or 10 minutes of what AI and deep learning, or just even what AI is looking like in Taiwan right now, or what social emotional learning is looking like in Taiwan. So if someone is attending one of those sessions, and they could maybe be prepared to just, they won't know anything about what that's what it looks like in Taiwan. So just a broad general information about what that topic looks like in Taiwan, if they happen to present, would be very much appreciated by the presenters, because it gives them a framework of how they're presenting.
Okay, and is it convenient that you can share your your PPT for us?
The slides.
The slides for us. Okay, thank you.
Yes, we're going to share everything with you at the end, like every presentation.
Thank you so much. OK， 那个综合刘向，您看一下，可能是您笔电上面有一个那个，对，已经看到了。OK， 好，那 so everybody just turn your video and we will have the group photo。好，丽婷。
We are looking forward to see you all in OCSB.
好了吗
Yeah. 好了。
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, bye bye.
谢谢，好，感谢大家。
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. See you.
See you. Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone. Safe travels. Bye.
Safe travels. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Hào, 郎组长，谢谢了，我们就。